thing he's ever witnessed. But when Ocean Colour Scene's Simon Fowler spoke to the New Musical Express about being outed as gay by tabloids in the 90s, he said that when it happened, the first thing Liam Gallagher did was come up and kiss me on the lips. Doesn't sound very homophobic to me. The Guardian article also claims that the Gallagher brothers have prehistoric political views because Noel described Ed Miliband and Jeremy Corbyn as communists. Jeremy Corbyn has been pictured speaking surrounded by communist flags at May Day parades in the past. So in my eyes, he is a communist. The article also bizarrely claims that Oasis are a bad rock band because they don't do fast songs. Yes, they do. Morning Glory is 137 beats per minute. That's as fast as my heart when I log on to try and buy tickets. The whole article is peak Guardian. There's open hatred for the working class. There's a tubby, middle-aged, joyless, non-binary gimp with a face like a slap bum. There's policing of other people's enjoyment. There's a ton of cultural elitism. And there's offence archaeology, digging back 30 years through the brothers' tweets and comments to find something to get outraged about. Of course the Guardian hate Oasis. They're the wrong kind of working class. The Guardian want working class people to be miserable and poverty-stricken. Liam and Noel are full of swagger and say what they think. They're too big to cancel. They don't agonise over making sure they've got the approved opinions. And they're a reminder of when Britain was great. Now, I'm joined tonight by communications advisor at the Institute for Economic Affairs, Reem Ibrahim, and comedian Jonathan Cogan. Reem, I'm going to start with you, because you spent 6 hours today trying to get tickets.
I did, and I was at lunch with my friends, and they were saying, why are you still on your phone? And I was like, I'm still trying to get into the queue. I think I was like 480,000 in the queue, and I still had hope. I think Oasis are absolutely brilliant, and you know, you're absolutely right. I think this kind of Guardian killjoying perspective is really quite just that. It sounds as though a lot of the criticism seemed to be the use of language by the brothers, the fact they used they called Russian football hooligans batty boys, and used
That's quite a bold move considering it's Russian football hooligans.
Yes, I mean they would beat you up. They would beat you up, and using the homophobic slur.
Cathedral.
Yes, indeed, and using the homophobic slur "bum chums" is apparently completely abhorrent and deserving of this kind of criticism. I completely disagree. I think this is kind of killjoy nonsense, and I think we need to be allowing people to be happy, and this kind of perspective that actually working class people need to be miserable and poverty stricken, I think is entirely abhorrent as well. And
I don't think it's good to use those homophobic slurs, but this was a long time ago.
And also, this show bum chum.
And also, the promo couldn't be broadcast. But
it's not a slur. I don't believe it. I don't believe that it's a slur. It's just a term that people use, and I think that there seems to be this kind of snowflakery around a lot of this kind of language that we use in the Guardian, but also in wider perspective. I mean, we shouldn't be calling it what is a slur? A slur is just another word that you don't like.
Yeah, there seems to be too much focusing on what people say and not enough focusing on what people do. I mean, Liam, by his actions, you know, kissing the guy from Ocean Colour Scene when he came out, and you know, standing up for people like that in the media. He's obviously not racist or homophobic in any way. He's sometimes, you know, obviously drinks a lot of booze, has some other fun as well, and you know, might sometimes mouth off a little bit. But you know, don't we all? You know, now things are preserved forever on Twitter.
Look, there should be two-tier policing for normal people and rock and roll stars. You should be able to get away with what you want if you sold that many records. Don't make the rules, that's just how it is. Also, they're calling Oasis the most damaging pop cultural force in recent British history. No, that's us. That's GBNews. Don't come for us, Guardian. That's what we do. Yeah.
What an accolade to have.
That's so true. I think it's so interesting just with the particular language that they've been using. And there's this notion, right, that there is this kind of two-tier, not two-tier policing, but two-tier kind of double standard when it comes to pop culture and when it comes to celebrities, which I think is absolutely right. I agree. I think if you've sold that many records, and if you've got me, a 22-year-old, looking at your tickets and trying to get, just wasting effectively my whole Saturday trying to get a ticket, I think it proves how valuable they are and just how brilliant they are. I mean, my God, Oasis literally shook up the whole rock industry entirely, and I think that this kind of killjoying nonsense is total nonsense. I also think just on that point about the language and these homophobic slurs and the use of the word queer, my God, don't we all use language like that? The majority of the working class are not politically correct. It's absurd. And God, if you record things that happen down at the pub where I'm from, they'd all be cancelled.
Well, I think people of all classes aren't as politically correct as The Guardian would like. And do you think Oasis hark back to a time when people just authentically, without feeling any shame, had pride in Britain?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that we are sort of entering into a future in which people are less proud of Britain, less proud of British culture. And I mean, again, the previous shows today spoke about the ban on outdoor smoking.
Yeah.
I think that's such a good microcosm for this perspective that actually we don't care about British culture, we don't care about British pubs. By the way, British pubs and the pub industry and the hospitality industry itself will suffer as a result of this ban. And there's this notion that we don't care, we just want to kill everybody's joy and actually tell people what they can and cannot do with their own bodies, despite the fact that they all know that smoking is bad for them.
Yeah.
Every adult knows that. And it's the same thing, right? It's this perspective that you can't possibly be happy if you believe any of these things, and you can't possibly be politically correct, and you can't possibly be a good person if you use this kind of language, which I think is totally absurd.
Well, I think the last time I saw Oasis was quite a while ago. I think it was in 1996. I think you could actually smoke inside. I can't totally remember.
Well,
but the indoor smoking ban I quite liked, even though I smoked at the time, because it meant you didn't have to constantly wash your clothes when you came back from the pub.
That was when I just started going to pubs. I think it was 2007.
Yeah.
Sort of 16, 17, and then they got rid of it. But I don't think Noel and Liam ever stopped. I think they were doing whatever they want all the time.
Well, it's private property, as you should. And I think if you want to smoke in a pub, you should be allowed to. I think the government should scrap that.
I've been vaping in the studio all day.
Nobody said anything because at GBNews they don't care.
Quite right.
I also think there is an element of the fact that the indoor smoking ban had such a huge, disastrous impact on pubs and the pub industry itself. A quarter of pubs in the UK closed down since the year 2000. The majority of that happened after 2006 when the ban was implemented.
Aren't they considering bringing in minimum prices as well?
They are considering
minimum price.
prices.
I mean,
it's only £10 per pint, right?
Yeah, what pint of beer doesn't reach the minimum price?
It's
ridiculous.
And it also didn't work. They tried to implement it in Scotland, and it just didn't work. It didn't have an impact.
It drove people into using harder drugs, which I guess Oasis might approve of. Anyway, with the Oasis revival, are some of our politicians trying to relive the glorious days of Britpop? Angela Rayner was seen having it large in a DJ booth in a club in Ibiza in front of a crowd of drugged-up punters. Big fish, little fish, cardboard box. Boris was also reliving the glory years of baggy trousers and white doves, posting this video speaking about his fears for freedom of speech and looking like the keyboard player from the Inspiral Carpets who slept in a hedge.
In Keir Starmer's Britain, I'm worried, for the first time in my life, about freedom of speech. I mean, the freedom of everybody to say what they innocently think, even if it turns out not to be true, and the freedom of people to use ordinary English words about subjects like illegal immigration when they know that they're telling the truth.
He really does look like Clint Boone from the Inspiral Carpets if Clint Boone got into pies instead of playing keyboards. Now, I share Boris's fears over freedom of speech and Keir Starmer's authoritarian ambitions. He's banned smoking outside pubs, or he's thinking about banning smoking outside pubs, just as Reem said, which isn't in the spirit of cigarettes and alcohol. But Boris is the man who oversaw the creation of the Online Safety Bill, which is the legislation that Keir Starmer is going to use to police the internet and restrict our freedoms. Now, back to my panel. Jonathan, you were going to say something probably funny.
Yeah, although the moment's past now, so...
That's fine, we'll just pretend.
OK, what was I going to say? Something about Boris being probably naked from the waist down from that video. That's all I can think of. But, yeah, so it's a bit much coming from him, as you say, somebody who drafted or put forward the Online Safety Bill, now very concerned.
Maybe not personally, but it happened on his watch. Yeah. And Reem, you work for a think tank that exhorts the values of free markets and free speech. I mean, are you worried that the clampdown on free speech is also going to affect the economy? Because if you can't think freely, if you can't discuss ideas freely, you can't express yourself freely, that also, has an impact on the free market.
It does. I'm really quite terribly concerned about the threat to freedom of expression in this country. under existing legislation, so any laws that are going to be implemented under a Labour government are entirely separate. Under existing legislation, we've already seen institutions use it against us. So, for example, Thames Valley Police said back in 2019 that anybody that was to reproduce the Oxford English Dictionary definition of what a woman is, an adult human female, could be arrested. They could be liable to criminal damages. So this notion...
So by reproducing the Oxford English Dictionary...
by saying an adult human female, you can be arrested. Yeah, it's mental. It's literally mental. This is the kind of thing we're seeing in the UK happening already under existing legislation. You mentioned the online safety bill. There was so much work that we at the IEA did on this, but effectively they were looking at language like psychological harms.
Yeah.
So if I decided that what you just said psychologically harmed me, entirely subjective, if I decided that, I could then take you to court and actually get you prosecuted under this bill. It is absolutely absurd. I'm really quite afraid for the future of freedom in general in this country, but definitely the future of freedom of expression. There's also the point to make, and Margaret Thatcher spoke about this all the time when she was Prime Minister, that the best way you get to the best ideas is by weeding out the bad ones. And you must have a marketplace of ideas. You must allow people to say the most outrageous things so that we know what outrageous things look like. You have to allow people to say the most grotesque and horrendous things.
Well,
otherwise...
I hope it's not a bad sign, but Keir just took down her portrait, so...
Yes. Well, if that is definitely an anecdote and a sort of microcosm for what the future of this country might look like.
No chicks.
It seems to be, communist states. Exactly. Margaret Thatcher was the first female leader of the country, and Keir Starmer
to be fair,
takes her portrait down.
He did replace the portrait with a picture of Diane Abbott as a mermaid. I made the same joke on Headliners last night. Don't watch both shows. Whatever you do. I'm a hack.
But we're seeing laws come in, particularly around speech, that are so vague. As Reem says, they're so nebulous and poorly defined. This idea that causing psychological harm, but they can't define what that actually means. So everybody could possibly be guilty of breaking that law. And this is what communist regimes have done. They create a law that everybody could be seen to have broken, so then everybody lives in fear of that law, and the state can pick and choose
You
who
find
it
me the
punishes.
man, I'll show you the crime.
Exactly.
As comedians, are you afraid of freedom of expression being entirely stamped down in this country? I mean, effectively, your job is more difficult,
There's
right?
already comedians being investigated under hate speech laws. Reginald D. Hunter was investigated, Jerry Sadowitz, and these are comedians on the left.
Yeah.
So, Lord knows what they're going to do to me. Anyway, coming up, we will assess the week's winners and losers in Cursed versus Blessed. See you in a couple of minutes.
GBNews Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Fatima's UK campaign, Children and Young People Matter, because I actually run a campaign, and my ministry today is about looking after children in the care system and improving their life outcomes. For me, I had a difficult start to my childhood, and I will never forget it. I mean, I always say I may have left the care system, but the care system hasn't left me. And I instantly understand the importance of giving our young children and young people the opportunity to also, have good life outcomes. So Fatima's UK campaign is all about that. And it's a summit next year. Eamon, I hope you're going to come.
No, I know we've talked about this before, and certainly, I mean, I believe in what you're doing. I think it's marvellous what you're doing, and that's why, when you think about children, and children are so close to you, and you look at that horror that happened in Southport yesterday, I mean, things like that
exactly.
will really hit home hard.
Well, children are the innocent ones, aren't they, Eamon? And this is what we look at when you think they're the future. We've got to start to put them back at the top. And it's a travesty when we see things like that, Omar, that happen. Children are the ones that are impacted. And, it's, for me, it's really important to be able to do the best we can and looking after their future. And so hopefully, I'm going to the Pyrenees in September, Eamon. That's my next challenge, the Bay of Biscay, from France to Spain and back. And hopefully people can go online, fatimascampaign.com, and give generously to help make a difference to these young people's lives. Because, as I say, children are the future.
GBNews, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody. in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown with me, Leo Curse. It's now time to go through the winners and losers of the week in Cursed versus Blessed. The main suspect of the stabbing spree at a festival of diversity in Germany recently has been reported to be a Syrian refugee. He targeted people's throats, killing 3 people and seriously wounding 8 others. The worst thing about this is that because it's a festival of diversity, victims might have thought he was the headline act. Oh, they've got immersive street theatre showing the downsides of diversity. That's unexpected. What was expected, however, was that the police didn't release a description of the man, even though he was on the run, so he was still a threat to the public, despite witnesses giving a description of him to the press. So the police could have circulated that description. So we all knew straight away it was an Islamic extremist, because the police said it was just a man, just a generic man with no distinguishable features that might help you identify him. I also knew that within hours the mainstream media would have worked out a way to blame the supposed far right. I even posted, watch the media cycle. Within hours it'll be far-right bigots exploit acceptable situation for their evil anti-getting stabbed in the neck agenda. I mean, never mind the relentless stream of people being stabbed in the neck and killed. The real problem is those horrible bigots who want to stop people being stabbed in the neck. A Sky News guest said he was worried about how it could be used by people on the far right to stir up hatred, although he has since distanced himself from those comments. The Financial Times ran this headline: why Germany's stabbing attack has rekindled the EU's far-right fears. Yeah, being worried about getting stabbed in the neck is now far-right, apparently. Politico wailed, German far-right seizes on knife attack ahead of crucial state elections. Now, do you think that if this terrorist was motivated by the far-right, the media would be tiptoeing around the issue and warning that the real problem is this being used by the far-left? Of course not. I mean, Reem, I thought they're almost becoming banal. These attacks, stabbing attacks, particularly in Germany, there's so many Islamist stabbing attacks, but the media response is becoming so predictable and so ridiculous.
It is so predictable, you're absolutely right. And I think it's so tragic, isn't it? The fact that we can't then look at these particular situations and identify somebody on the basis that they might be coming across as being accused of being racist. This exact same thing happened with the grooming gangs in the UK. The reason why the police failed to investigate early on is because they were afraid of being accused of being racist. Yeah. And I think that there seems to be this fear of backlash. Of course, we know with the Southport killings in the UK that person ended up not being an asylum seeker. But there are various different issues here. Whoever they are, and no matter where they come from, I don't care. This particular person has attempted or has indeed hurt somebody physically, and I don't care where they come from, but they need to be identified so that they could be found even further. As you said earlier on, I think that the fact that this particular person was still a threat to the public and they weren't being identified by the police is just absurd, and it is genuinely quite scary where we are going at the moment.
And I read a report that said that I believe the government services tried to deport him, tried to find him, but they legally weren't allowed to search his asylum accommodation, so he was still in the country. And obviously, you know, people have been fearing that it's going to lead to the rise of the far right. But the far right seem to be the only people willing to do anything about the constant stream of people coming into the country. Obviously, most of whom, you know, aren't going to stab anybody in the neck. But you know, this was a Syrian man who was in Germany but hates Germans so much he wanted to stab them. I don't understand why. You know, what's the benefit to Germany of having him in Germany?
Well, I mean, like I say, if the police aren't going to do anything, then what are people to do but try and find a way to defend themselves. I mean, I'm not sort of justifying any kind of racist attacks or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, people are going to feel scared and unprotected. But do you remember that Norm Macdonald?
People are unprotected.
Yeah, they are, for sure. Do you remember that Norm Macdonald tweet?
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember, but it's about like the nukes or something.
Yeah, he says what he's afraid of most. You know, imagine if ISIS detonated a nuclear bomb and killed 50 million Americans. Imagine the backlash against peaceful Muslims. And that was a satirical tweet, but it seems to be informing the media response in 2024. It's ridiculous. Anyway, there was a glimpse into Britain's future as an authoritarian socialist state this week as Brazil shut down Twitter, also known as X. The Brazilian Supreme Federal Court Justice Alexandra de Moraes ordered the immediate and complete suspension of the social media platform owned by Elon Musk. The row began in April with the judge ordering the suspension of dozens of X accounts for what the establishment in Brazil say is spreading disinformation. However, others say the left-wing Brazilian establishment is censoring the Brazilian right-wing opposition without due process, trials, or even warrants, under accusations of fake news. There's also a reminder of how the left force social media platforms to spread disinformation when they're in power. As Mark Zuckerberg says, the Biden administration officials pressured Meta to censor content during the pandemic, and big tech has censored other valid news on behalf of left-wing governments. As the New York Post reported, the Washington ruling class, including career intelligence officials, the media and big tech, plotted well in advance to suppress and discredit the fully authentic and legitimate Hunter Biden laptop story, solely for the purpose of influencing the 2020 election. Now, Jonathan, I feel like this week we've had Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, arrested. We've had Musk threatened by the EU. Now Brazil banning Twitter. It feels like there's real restrictions being put on free speech on the internet.
Absolutely, and the worry is how far is this going to go? I mean, you think this kind of thing wouldn't happen over here, but then we're seeing people arrested and thrown in prison for tweets and for jokes, and you do worry this is going to come to our shores. I mean, I hope not, because your Twitter is basically what I need to get me rolled up in the morning. If I can't do any push-ups, I'll read your Twitter.
It's mental. I'm going to say something a little bit optimistic here.
Yeah.
Now, I know this is a very terrible story, and this is clearly a case of an authoritarian zealot taking too much of this power. However, one thing I will say is that technological advancements and the rise of social media and the impact that it has had on so many people across the world means that actually it is becoming increasingly difficult for governments to censor anything. So, of course, we know that X has been banned in Brazil, but there are other social media platforms, and I guarantee that many people will be able to get onto the sort of black market of the internet illegally.
But they're threatening fines of, I think it's about $8,000 if anybody accesses Twitter or X through a VPN, so through something that would allow you to access it.
Yeah, it's disgusting and it's authoritarian, it's disgraceful. But I do feel optimistic about the fact that social media and these kind of private initiatives have actually allowed people to resist authoritarian regimes. I mean, a really good example.
Look at the Arab Spring.
Absolutely. For those who don't know, I'm half Egyptian, half Moroccan, and on my Egyptian side, we talk about this all the time, about the impact of the Arab Spring. In Egypt, the revolution was actually dubbed the Facebook Revolution because the protests and the organisers were actually using social media platforms like Facebook in order to organise the protests, which were fundamentally against an authoritarian regime. And very similar things actually happened. The Arab Spring started in Tunisia after the government effectively took away the license, or said that this guy didn't have a license, Mohammed Bouazizi, that he didn't have a license for his fruit stall, and so the police seized it from him. So he set himself on fire in protest of that. He set himself on fire in protest of an authoritarian regime, and that spurred, it was the catalyst for protests across all of North Africa. These protests, the government will try and ban them and try and restrict them, but social media allowed them to have the freedom to do so. And that's why I feel a bit more optimistic.
And also people in the West applauded that social media was allowing people to do that in the Arab Spring, and now they're trying to stop it for their own citizens. Moving on, a Scottish drag queen who co-authored a guide for trans youth for a major LGBT charity has been convicted of distributing child pornography. Andrew Easton groomed a 13-year-old boy for indecent images. The Sunday Post revealed how the man, 39, wrote a coming-out guide given to school kids as young as 13. The Sunday Post also reported that LGBT Youth Scotland, the charity he was involved with, boasted that they have trained thousands of teachers over LGBT inclusivity. Schools, local authorities, the Care Inspectorate and government-run health and social care authorities made the guide available to children from the age of 13. Now, Andrew Easton isn't the first paedophile to be linked to LGBT Youth Scotland. The organisation's first chief executive, James Rennie, was found guilty in 2009 of possessing child pornography and running Scotland's largest paedophile network using company resources. To paraphrase Oscar Wilde, to have one person convicted of paedophilia may be regarded as a misfortune. To have two looks like carelessness. And it's all funded by us. LGBT Youth Scotland received £700,000 in funding from the Scottish Government and other parts of the state in 2019. Now, Reem, I'm worried about this because unqualified lobby groups and NGOs and all these activists seem to have incredible contact with the government and ability to shape legislation. And there's not much in the way of oversight, making sure that they don't contain wrong-uns such as Andrew Easton.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And there seems to be a huge amount of oversight in these organisations. And a lot of them are funded by the taxpayer. There was a really good website, I don't know if it still exists, it was called Fake Charities, where they would effectively list all of these charities that were actually funded by the government. Action on Smoking and Health, the organisation that has proposed a lot of these sort of interventionist schemes in tobacco harm reduction, like banning banning smoking outside of pubs, they are funded by the taxpayer. So they are one group that recommends these things. Now, I don't think they should be shut down. I think that, again, in a marketplace of ideas, you should allow these organisations to say what they want to say.
But they let the government cheat.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, in Ireland and Scotland, obviously in Westminster as well, the government funds NGOs and funds charities who then lobby the government.
Charities.
They basically buy ideas. The charities lobby the government with ideas and say, this is what we want. They're paid by the government to do that. And then the government can say, this is what people want. And it's not what people want. It's what you've paid them to do.
That is genius. I mean, it's
they've really hacked the system, haven't they?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
no more diddlers in children's charities. That's my rule.
How about that for a law? You can run for election on that, Jonathan. Next on the Saturday Night Showdown, we've got Culture Corner. This week, we've got American athlete Ilona Mayer, the latest from the Taylor Swift terror plot, and a new computer game that is making waves for all the wrong reasons. See you in a couple of minutes.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next few days, weather will be turning increasingly unsettled. We'll also start to see some outbreaks of rain developing, even some thunderstorms in places. That's because high pressure is starting to pull away to the northeast of the UK, allowing our southeasterly flow to develop, and this wall front starting to introduce some cloud from the south. And that's certainly the case as we head through the evening into the overnight period. More in the way of cloud pushing northwards across England and Wales. Some showers starting to break out, locally heavy, particularly towards the far south and southeast towards the end of the night, where the odd thunderstorms possible. So the clearest skies lurking towards the northwest across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and here turning quite chilly in some rural spots into mid to upper single figures. Holding up though in the south, quite a humid night across some southern areas with lows in the high teens Celsius. As for Sunday, we'll start the day across the north and northwest of the UK on a fine note. Any early mist and low cloud lifting to give some sunshine at times. But the sunniest weather towards the far northwest of Scotland. Heading further south, though, into England and Wales, more in the way of cloud around. And at this stage in the morning, we'll start to see a few showers breaking out, but particularly across the central and southern part of England. Here again, one or two heavy, even thundery showers are possible. As we head through the day, those showers start to become more extensive across some central and southern parts of England, eventually working their way north into parts of northern England into the afternoon too. So it's the northwest of the UK and across some western spots, seeing the best of the lingering brightness with one or two lighter showers here. But those showers across England and Wales there, eastern parts of Wales, they're locally on the heavy side and could give some flooding in places as well. Temperatures peaking in the southeast at a very warm and quite humid 27 Celsius. As for Monday, low pressure will be in charge, so it stays very unsettled. We could see some further thundery showers across the east and northeast of the UK, with rain also working its way in from the west, eventually turning fresher out across parts of the Northern Islands. Temperatures here no better than 18 Celsius into the afternoon. An unsettled start into the coming working week, but things perhaps turning a bit drier towards the middle part of the week, with temperatures returning to the seasonal average.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. It's time now for Culture Corner. Ilona Mayer, the American rugby star, I mean, she's American and she plays rugby. They haven't invented a new sport called American rugby, like American football, which, funnily enough, is a bit like rugby. Well, she has become a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model and she looks great. She's an athlete at the peak of her game. That's not her in the swimsuit. That'd be a very strange suit to go swimming in. I don't think we've got the copyright to show the actual picture. But she's just helped America score a bronze medal in the Olympics. But the article in the Guardian, I think it is, describes her body positivity and says that she's a feminist trailblazer. And this is mean. Everybody knows that if you're described as feminist or body positive in the Guardian, it means you're either shaped like Lizzo or have a penis. Now, Reem, this woman, Ilona, she genuinely looked amazing. She's at the peak of her athletic prowess. You know, she's a strong woman. She's a rugby player, but she looked brilliant. Why are they calling her stunning and brave, which we all know means fat?
It's we all do know that stunning and brave means you need to lose a bit of weight. I think it's so funny because I think there seems to be this kind of political correctness when it comes to talking about women's bodies very specifically. Now, don't get me wrong, I do understand that body dysmorphia and teenagers, I was a female teenager and that kind of perspective on the way in which women growing up or everybody growing up feels very insecure about their bodies. But there is this irony around this. I mean, women in the media that have been, their bodies have been talked about. She very clearly knew that people were going to be commenting on her body because she modelled in a swimsuit. And this entire notion, if you call her stunning and brave, the connotations of that just are, you look a bit fat, which is obviously not true. You're brave to take your body out there.
Yeah, Jonathan, people say, like, I mean, Reeves just mentioned there's so much focus on women's bodies, but if you want to look at the ideals that male children have to deal with, I remember having He-Man dolls, and it's like, how am I supposed to achieve that without steroids?
Well, I mean, look, no one cares about men. We just got to deal with it. That's it. Just don't complain. Do whatever you want to do, and just get away with it and don't complain.
Yeah, men's mental health just doesn't exist.
No,
it's not a thing.
And as somebody who slept with a few stunning and brave people in my time, I've got to say, I didn't feel that positive afterwards. One test came back, but that's something else.
Well, the CIA say they foiled a huge plot to attack a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna. 3 male teenage suspects were arrested in connection with the foiled attacks, allegedly inspired by the Islamic State group. The CIA say these men wanted to kill a huge number of people at or outside the concerts, and 200,000 people had been expected to attend these 3 Vienna concerts. The shows were scrapped the day before the first show was due to start due to the terror plot. The Ariana Grande concert bombing in Manchester in 2017, which killed 22 people and injured over 1,000, shows how devastating such Islamist plots can be. The Taylor Swift plot is a reminder that the threat is still with us and could be getting worse with the war in Gaza. And with 40,000 Islamists on terror watch lists in the UK, let's hope that our security services are right every single time, because the terrorists only need to be right once. I mean, really, it seems to be a bit self-defeating to allow, an ideology into the country and have 40,000 Islamists on terror watch lists and just have to somehow deal with that and juggle it instead of, doing something.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's so sad. I think there is a particular culture that is so pervasive and obviously incredibly damaging, and then you end up with these kind of it's a very, very small minority of people that are these terrible radicals that do actually want to hurt people, and it's so tragic. I remember hearing the story of the 8-year-old girl that lost her life at the Ariana Grande concert, and it just absolutely broke my heart. It is so sad. These are real people that are losing their lives as a result. And again, I mean, thank goodness that when it came to the Taylor Swift concert in Vienna, the security services got it right, but they don't always get it right, and this is the problem.
It's impossible to get it right every single time.
And this goes back to the earlier conversation we were having, right? I mean, I hate identity politics. I never mentioned this, but I did grow up in a Muslim family. My family are Muslim, and this kind of perspective that actually those particular people themselves, law-abiding Muslims that, their grandparents came to this country and they call themselves British, they are British. Those are the people that end up suffering as a result of our complete misguided ignorance when it comes to these particular people. They are those people. My family is some of the most anti-extremist people ever, because they get, you end up getting roped in with everybody else.
Yeah. And we see Muslim countries, I mean, Jordan, places like that, they know exactly how to deal with Islamists, and they deal with them pretty harshly. And also, there are people upset at the Taylor Swift concert for other reasons. Let's have a look at this. That's a Taylor Swift fan who's
nuts,
hearing a song that apparently moved her very deeply. Have you ever cried like that to a song?
Only one I've written that I thought was so good.
Oh my God.
No, I don't know. What do I think? Look, they're not well, but at least they're...
They're not well.
At least they're spending money.
Honestly,
at least they're spending money. Now, are computer games being used by the woke establishment to push radical woke ideology onto us? A new video game called Dustborn features a diverse, gay and ethnic group of misfits who flee the police across the divided states of America, which, according to one of the developers, is a parody of Trump's America. In the game, you can use your special powers to, and I'm not joking, trigger or cancel people by calling them racist. I'm not joking. Have a look at this.
You're with the black kid, dresses like a writer. Does he know anything?
You are racist.
Oh my God! I mean, that doesn't look like much fun.
And it comes up with "finish them."
yeah. Well, you call them homophobic as well. And Dustborn doesn't seem to be going down well with the gaming community. It's tanked, launching with a peak concurrent player count of only 83 players playing around the world at once. To put this in context, a game released the day before called Wukong reached over 2 million concurrent players. So that's 83 for Dustborn and 2 million for a Chinese game about a monkey king or something. The game has a current approval rating of just 4% and has been criticised by players for being anti-white, anti-male, overtly political, and about as much fun as being slowly fed into a mincer. Dustborn is also being criticised for allegedly using assets from other games. And worst of all, it was funded by the taxpayer. No. The Norwegian Film Institute funded the game for 14 million kroner. That's roughly £1 million. And that's in addition to 150,000 euros from the Creative EU grant programme. Now, do you think that this is good use of taxpayers' money, Jonathan?
I think they should have spent more money on it. No, it's obviously terrible. As somebody who likes to create art, I do screenwriting, comedy, all kinds of things, music. I generally don't think the government should fund it, because then you are essentially incentivized to just parrot whatever the
governments do. We've seen this in comedy. And obviously, as a free market person, I take it you're opposed
completely
to it.
against it. And you're absolutely right. It incentivises really, really bad art.
Yeah.
And Effectively, when I first heard what you were saying about this game, I thought, oh, well, you know, it's another example of bad politics and a bad business. No, it was actually funded by taxpayers, and this is the problem, right?
Yeah.
This is the problem, because effectively the government intervening in these particular issues means that those particular businesses aren't allowed to fail.
Yeah.
They're too big to fail, they're paid by the taxpayer, and so they're not allowed to fail. This is the problem. The reason why the market works so well is because if a business idea is really bad, it fails. People don't give them any money.
Yeah.
With the government, you're forced to give them your money, which is why I believe taxation is theft, but that's an entirely different conversation.
Well, I think it is theft if it's going to pay for ridiculous computer games that nobody wants to play. Anyway, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, it's time for Clown World, where we'll dive into some of the viral videos from the week. See you in a couple of minutes.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
John Steinbeck once said of his 1939 novel, The Grapes of Wrath, that he intended to rip a reader's nerves to rags. Well, GB News sent its famously delicate Stefan Kyriazis to see an adaptation of the work in a London theatre, and somehow he's made it into the studio today. Give people a tiny background about The Grapes of Wrath. It's about the Depression, isn't it?
Yes, it's the Great Plains, which were absolutely ravaged by droughts. They'd completely overfarmed the topsoil, so they had all these huge dust storms, and basically the farms were worthless. So they reckon in the 1930s, about 3.5 million people left this huge central agrarian area of America. And this is a very poor, white working region. Often, many of them headed for the coast to California to this dream of orange groves, white houses, plentiful work. And we focus in on the Joad family. Very poor, very working class. Tom Chode has just got out of prison for homicide in self-defence, and he's played by one of the Treadaways, Luke Treadaway, who I confused with his twin Harry.
Understandably.
They are identical. And so they pack everything into this kind of old-fashioned jalopy. It's a bit like Beverly Hillbillies, but not humorous. And I think there's about 13 people crammed, hanging off the sides, and they embark on this odyssey across the country. So there's all these huge themes about migration, about prejudice. They are viewed as an underclass by other Americans. So although they're migrants, they're not quite immigrants, but they're treated very poorly, as almost subhuman. When they get there, the dream turns out to be false, the pay is terrible, and then very often when they take the job the next day, the pay is halved. It's a terrible life.
It's a very angry novel.
It's an angry, dark novel.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown with me, Leo Carson. It's time now for Clown World. And first up, this is a video of a Russian Bukhanka army truck, which has taken on a Mad Max look.
Вот этот вариант с глушилкой, плюс обшито со всех сторон. Двери еще доработанные, там металл дополнительный, плюс... Да, сейчас покажу, не скажу. Вот таким образом она вся доработана.
So that's a Russian army truck, but it's been stapled all over with what looks like stretched out car tires to protect it from drones. Ukrainian drones have been tearing Russian vehicles apart. We've seen cages, nets and chains. This one, as well as the car tires, had chicken wire over the windscreen. I mean, Reem, do you think this is going to do anything? Do you think the drones are going to bounce off these car tires?
Full disclosure, I know absolutely nothing about artillery or indeed about how wars are actually won, but my suspicion is no.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that car at Burning Man when I was there. was giving out Jägermeister. Is it?
Yeah.
Playing Russian anthems.
Russia's running out of armoured vehicles to the extent that they're now using Chinese golf carts to ferry troops to the front line. And obviously, if you're in an armoured troop carrier, you've got some protection. A drone hits you, it might damage the vehicle, but you're going to be okay.
Golf cart.
Yeah, but a golf cart. Yeah,
golf cart, you're completely exposed. You can just literally. Well, there you go.
Yeah. So I don't know. The Ukraine war is 2.5 years in, but I think it's reaching a crunch point, and we could
all
see
just get along, Leah.
Some movement. It would be great if we could all get along. We tend to on this show. But
we need to annihilate the Russians. I think is what needs to happen. We need to absolutely.
That's some great warmongering speech there, Reem. Next up, we've got a body-positive queer stripper who complains about fat phobia in stripping audiences. Take a look at this, if you dare.
Phobic people out there, even in the queer community. I was a go-go dancer at a pride party, and the amount of money that I made versus the amount of money that the thin people made was not the same. Sometimes people don't even feel comfortable putting the money in my underwear.
Oh my God, obviously, look at you. I mean, look at you. I'm not being horrible, but obviously.
You're being a little bit horrible.
Yeah, she gave up pole dancing and she's now doing pillar dancing.
I just want to know who installed the pole. Yeah. That's some good structural engineering right there.
You need some good structural integrity to hold that.
Do you think that is fat phobia? That's.
I think fat phobia is good. I think that we should be more fat phobic. Actually, I'm sorry, but there are too many fat people that think it's perfectly okay to live the way that they do. And look, I'm a libertarian. I think that if you want to live your life and you want to look morbidly obese and look like that, then you should be perfectly free to do so. But I'm also free to be fat phobic. I think we need more of it.
My rule is
you'd be like Keir Starmer, but instead of banning smoking, you'd be encouraging smoking because that can help you lose weight, and you'd be banning eating crisps.
Absolutely. No, I wouldn't ban crisps. No, again, I think people need to exercise some self-restraint. But the thing that really annoys me about that is she's effectively saying that she expects people to want to give her money for the way that she looks. Well, and I think that kind of arrogance really, really annoys me.
My rule is never get a lap dance from somebody who needs help back up.
Yeah. Well, talking of ocean-going mammals, we've finally got a rather over-friendly dolphin. Take a look at this. I'm not actually sure that was suitable for a pre-watershed audience. That was a dolphin. I think it was just swimming.
I think
it was just swimming.
Are you hard?
But we've one of the weirdest heckles I ever had was somebody shouted dolphins are rapists at one of my shows because I was talking about dolphins.
Yeah.
And I've got to be honest,
he was right.
It didn't go down too well with the audience.
Clearly the evidence is there. Clearly it's true. Clearly that audience member knew more than we do.
Yeah. Well, and there have been well-catalogued incidences of people having sexual congress with dolphins. Not that I want to give you any ideas.
Willingly or sort of...
I'm not sure. Can a dolphin consent? I mean, it's a sort of
when they say sleeping with the fishes, that's a Simpsons,
joke.
Joke.
Well, there are certainly plenty of fish in the sea.
Very good. Dolphin sex. No, that wasn't anything.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my time. Oh, Fredo.
Right. Are we going to Ben Leo? Well, no, we're not. So, what's the weirdest heckle you've ever had, Jonathan?
There was an old lady. I was doing quite well. I was doing like a 10-minute set in Surbiton. An old lady just goes, I've got 2 minutes left. What should I do? And this really, really decrepit old lady goes, be funny. Be younger, you lizard. Anyway.
Be younger. That's so mean.
Yeah,
well, maybe you just weren't funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It stung.
You're funny looking, though.
Well, I was performing at an old folks' home, and it was obviously a terrible misbooking, but they hated me so much that people were getting up to leave, and I heard a clatter, and somebody dropped their crutches. They hated me so much that somebody who couldn't even walk had dropped.
That is so funny.
Had dropped their.
Oh, that's really terrible. God, being a comedian is difficult, isn't it? You've really got to.
Tonight, it's not easy.
Tough.
Yeah.
See, I'm not funny, but I don't pretend to be. So I'm just sort of leave that to you guys.
Well, I don't know anything about economics.
Up next tonight. It's Ben Leo tonight. What have you got for us this evening, Ben?
Hello, Leo. Cracking show. Look, I've got an update on the small boats arrivals. Hundreds more yesterday. I'll give you the exact number in just a tick. But the big question tomorrow, in the Telegraph at least, from our very own Camilla Tominey, is where the hell are the Tories? They're meant to be His Majesty's official opposition. Rishi Sunak's eating frozen yoghurt in California by the Pacific Ocean. Also, some detail about Lee Anderson, one of his online trolls who's been sending him vile death threats. He's been up in court, and we'll have some more of that from Brendan Clark-Smith, the former Tory MP, who's also had similar abuse. See you in a sec.
Sounds fantastic, Ben. Look forward to watching that and finding out about the small boats that I thought Keir had a marvellous plan to stop. Anyway, thank you so much to my brilliant panel tonight. We've had Reem Ibrahim and Jonathan Cogan. And don't forget Headliners as well later on tonight at 11 p.m. I'll be on that, along with Lewis Schaefer and Cressida Wetton. And if you don't see that, then I'll hopefully see you again next week. Goodbye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next few days, the weather will be turning increasingly unsettled. We'll also start to see some outbreaks of rain developing, even some thunderstorms in places. That's because high pressure is starting to pull away to the northeast of the UK, allowing our southeasterly flow to develop, and this wall front starting to introduce some cloud from the south. And that's certainly the case as we head through the evening into the overnight period. More in the way of cloud pushing northwards across England and Wales. Some showers starting to break out, locally heavy, particularly towards the far south and southeast towards the end of the night, where the odd thunderstorms possible. So the clearest skies lurking towards the northwest across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and here turning quite chilly in some rural spots into mid to upper single figures. Holding up though in the south, quite a humid night across some southern areas with lows in the high teens Celsius. As for Sunday, we'll start the day across the north and northwest of the UK on a fine note. Any early mist and low cloud lifting to give some sunshine at times. The sunniest weather towards the far northwest of Scotland. Heading further south though into England and Wales, more in the way of cloud around, and at this stage in the morning we'll start to see a few showers breaking out, but particularly across the central and southern part of England. Here again, one or two heavy, even thundery showers are possible. As we head through the day, those showers start to become more extensive across some central and southern parts of England, eventually working their way north into parts of northern England into the afternoon too. So it's the northwest of the UK and across some western spots, seeing the best of the lingering brightness with one or two lighter showers here. But those showers across England and Wales there, eastern parts of Wales, they're locally on the heavy side and could give some flooding in places as well.